All right, good morning and welcome to Wake Up Missoula. I'm your host, Scott Ramp, here to usher you into March 28th. It is the last episode of March. So we have a lot to talk about today. We've got some news items, a lot of different things that are happening in the state of Montana and beyond. Not to mention, we got some new stuff from our spring break camp that we did last week, featuring a trickster leprechaun. And also we have a fun dubbin stuff for you guys featured from Be Careful Who You Marry. And then as we jump right in, we're going to go over to your city council report. You know, not much, but rezoning. They're talking a little bit more about Lower Miller Creek near the Linda Vista areas. They're upbringing and building out the neighborhood. They're rezoning things from R 5.4 to RT 5.4, which essentially adds like the concept of duplexes, more townhouses on higher density of land there. So that got approved and moved forward. Not to mention later on this meeting, during the committee of the whole, the mayor talks about their priorities moving into the fiscal year 2026. So this meeting was fairly short. So as every meeting kind of ended with the legislative update, here is Jessica Miller talking a little bit more about what's going on in the legislature.
There are still revenue bills that are moving between houses, revenues and expenditures, but all of the regular general bills now have passed that transmittal deadline. So anything not transmitted by that time is now pretty much well and truly dead. So first I'm going to go through the bills that missed transmittal that we were opposing. House Bill 482, provide that local government elections be partisan. That one failed. There was a trio of bills that were essentially anti-DEI. House Bill 618, House Bill 635, and House Bill 319. All three of those missed the transmittal deadline. House Bill 799 would have allowed property owners to vote in levy elections. People who did not live in the city of Missoula would have been able to vote in our elections. That one missed transmittal. SB 146, Private Property Protection Act, would have pretty much eliminated almost all zoning in communities, so that one missed transmittal as well. Senate Bill 209, revising the term length of conservation easements. Right now, conservation easements have, they're for forever, and this one was either 20 or 40. I think it was 40 years. It would have limited those. And Senate Bill 254 would have not allowed us to have a lobbyist in Helena, to pay a lobbyist to advocate for us in Helena.
All right, and so there's some of the things that are going on currently within the legislature. A big part of it is transmittal. Essentially means that they can't put or address new bills to the legislature. Budget stuff tends to take priority regardless of the middle period, which requires more bills to have passed the House at some point, but many miss the deadlines like the many bills she listed. More news on the animal working bill that would have taken out Missoula's ordinance on banning animal acts in Missoula, and that one was also tabled, so the ban still stands here in Missoula for banning those animal acts. This is more related to circus animals and related to that more or less, elephant that escaped in Butte. So rather than getting into the whole PETA of the matter, we're going to move on. And with every bill that the city opposed, they also have some of the bills that they supported, and Jessica Miller talks about those missed out bills.
House Bill 160, repealing the Uniform Auxiliary Container Regulation laws. That is a bill, so several years ago, there was an item added to state law that said we cannot ban plastic bags, et cetera, as a city. So this bill would have removed that. That bill missed the transmittal deadline. However, Representative Marler's styrofoam bill, banning styrofoam in takeout containers statewide, that one is actually still active at this point. Senate Bill 504 would have provided grants for permanent supportive housing facilities. Obviously, that could have been good for our community. That one has died as well, and we were supporting that.
Okay, and so those are some of the items brought forth Part of the Missoula's Gold Shore Zero Waste supported many of those bills, included ways to ban things like in our community that would have long-term effects on our landfill, and by proxy our aquifer, which remains unprotected as it seeps down. All sorts of fun stuff that the city tries to prevent from seeping down. If only the state let the towns have a little bit more autonomy. But then again, one bill looks to offset tourism impact by benefiting the property owner via tax relief. So in a way, this isn't a sales tax, but this is essentially what they're going to try to implement during the tourist seasons for hotel stays and stuff like that. And so that extra revenue that they already do through the tourism business improvement district, which goes on to basically the money into a pot that goes into promoting tourism, we're also trying to expand upon that to try to benefit cities in the state of Montana. So here is Jessica Miller on that.
Senate Bill 90, redistributing certain state tax revenue to primary residence property tax relief. That takes a portion of taxes that are already being collected on tourists. So some of the bed tax and rental car tax, and it takes it from the state general fund and redistributes it to property taxpayers. So all three of those are still going. And then some of the bills that we're opposing and are still going are House Bill 20, requiring voted levies to be in dollars rather than mills. This one has been through both houses and was returned to the House with some amendments, and it looks like that one is on track to pass. So we expect that one to go through.
Okay, and if you really look into the levy amount versus the levy thing, the reason why city opposes state changes to mills is roughly because they want to have a set amount of money for projects, which makes a lot of sense. But you also have to take into account these projects, levies, bonds, and whatnot are long-term, which the longer the loan, the longer and higher the interests, and by proxy, those mills also have to be aimed at percentages that are calculated at numbers through the mills. So if your taxes go up, those mills also go up to help offset, and which is a tool to help inflation, to help fight inflation. And frankly, in an unstable economy, which I'm aware the economy has been rough the last couple of weeks, it might not be a good idea to set a set number moving forward. So as we wrap up the meeting, we have some comments from the mayor. Mayor Andrea Davis talks about the new park being developed on the north side and other items that may impact you here in Missoula.
So White Pine Park has been in place for some time, and there's an opportunity here to be able to expand this to an opportunity for a 5.4 acre park at Scott and Rogers, and it's going to be a welcome amenity based on the feedback from that neighborhood. There'll be a lot of improvements, and so opportunity for folks to attend, see the plans, provide comment, ensure the park meets your needs. The other thing that I would mention is that we are innovating when it comes to street sweeping. Our Deputy Director of Public Works recognized an opportunity that he had seen in another community and thought we'd try that here. So when we go ahead and start our street sweeping operations, we will start to mark streets that are basically scheduled for street sweeping in a day in advance with bright green cones. This helps people recognize that they may need to find an alternative location to park. It also gives residents an opportunity to plan. The city of Missoula conducts street sweeping partly because we live in a bowl, and all of the cars that travel through our city streets cause quite a bit of particulate matter, resulting in air pollution.
All right, and so there is more changes to what they're doing for the street sweeping schedule. Watch out for those green cones as they plan to take up those spots. Essentially, they do this about 3 times a year: fall, spring, and middle of summer. We get into this a little bit more as public comments and, opening up for public comments by city officials. Christian Jordan, City Council, spoke out against the closure of Johnson Street Shelter, and it also talks about the reaction of some of the users who have used the Johnson Street Shelter since its inception.
And they use this word, nobody else did, this city staff did not use this word, but this is how they felt. They said, if you're culling 30 beds a month, how are you going to pick who you cull? Another fellow said that he works from 9 to 5, and he was hoping that they could have these meetings when he doesn't have to take time off work. Another fellow said that he is a convicted felon and he does work. And he said he's been looking for housing for years. And he's wondering how the city is going to help him get housing when he's been able to do that this whole time because of his felony conviction. They also wanted to know if, if we have the money to house them, why we don't have the money to build a new shelter and continue to provide the service. They wanted to know how long the city would be paying for their rent. They also were very aware of the housing crisis and wanted to know where we were going to be able to find housing for them in the first place. There was another question that really was quite touching too. They were very concerned about the staff there who were going to potentially be losing their jobs, which I thought was very meaningful because, I know the staff there do work very hard and it can be quite challenging. And the fact that a lot of the unhoused residents there were concerned about the job prospect of staff was very heartwarming, considering that the onus was going to probably take a bigger toll on the unhoused. There were more questions, but basically the folks were in disbelief the city was going to accomplish what they were proposing. And they were pretty upset when their questions that they were asking were answered with, "We don't know. We're developing the plan in real time, and we will get back to you with that information."
All right, and so that's the typical response from what I've been hearing is that there hasn't been any kind of major tentative deal moving forward with the closure, besides the fact that they want to get as many people in homes as possible. The city's main plan, as they said in the press conference, raised money and used their plans for the veterans that they did for their holiday Home for the Holidays plan to apply to the 160 residents that use the shelter on the regular. However, Johnson Street plans to close things down by the end of August. The counter always comes down to money and those priorities, which have never built in homelessness as part of the city's overall budget. And while the shelter is run by the city, those funds were only limited to the impact that COVID had, and that simply is no longer the case for the government to spend that money since they have none of that money. So personnel is either going to get cut or frozen as DOGE wreaks havoc across the U.S. The people, essentially, not to get too political on this particular thing, since I did just bring up DOGE, is that they've seemed to cut a lot of personnel, which is not necessarily the biggest cost savings compared to the government spending as a whole. So, however, we must not lose focus as we dive into committee meetings. Committee of the Whole talks about the budget season for next year, and the mayor, Andrea Davis, talks a little bit more about how her priorities of what she sees the money being used for, the projects moving forward, and everything that revolves around that. And so here's Mayor Andrea Davis through the Committee of the Whole meeting that happened on Wednesday.
This is not a budget presentation, nor does this kick off our budget process. So the budget process will start mid-May. But to start us out here, I've been reflecting quite a bit on the last year and a half of serving as mayor and thinking about the significant progress that we have made together. And despite having a vibrant and diverse economy here in Missoula, and recognized nationally by several different organizations and publications actually for that vibrancy, there are so many people in our community that are struggling with the cost of living and continue to face many challenges. And ensuring that everyone in Missoula has the opportunity to live and thrive is fundamental, and it continues to be my top priority. Our administration is committed to making city government more responsive, addressing the increasing cost of living, and ensuring Missoulians have options for homes that they can afford.
Yep, and many of the things moving forward is a lot of the same, but not to mention, just because it's all of the same is, May is budget season. It's never too early to curb funds to benefit Missoulians. However, most of the funds the city tries to allocate for affordable housing projects to take priority over shelter services, to which the city doesn't have money to fund. So what that means is that the city's priorities are to making more housing, affordable housing, and just open up the supply to allow for the people to have better options. And when you have more diverse options and you have a high vacancy rate, the prices tend to go down. If you've looked at Zillow lately, housing prices have also gone down, so a lot of things are starting to go down right now. So there is some there's a sunrise on the horizon for sure. But Mayor Andrea talks about federal grants in the current administration and kind of reflects on how they are going to have a reactive budget this season.
We have been working with our partners to ensure that the federal grants that have been awarded to the city of Missoula, in partnership with the county, in partnership with the Montana Department of Transportation, we are working to find clarity on assuredness that those grants are going to come through. I had a chance to speak with the director of the Montana Department of Transportation on Monday. He was describing the practice that the Montana Department of Transportation currently is under in coalition with we are one of 5 states rather, in our region. There is lobbying efforts at the federal level to ensure that Montana does receive its substantive federal awards. It's unclear whether individual projects will have their priority or not.
Yep. And essentially, the grants that they're talking about is the over $100 million in federal grants awarded to us over the last couple of years in regards to the Higgins Bridge Corridor, East Missoula Corridor, various other projects, including Main and Front Street conversions to 2-ways rather than just the double threat, which a lot of engineers basically call 2-way streets. But many of the plans depend on the state level to provide property tax relief. However many efforts on the city level seems that the same as last year without the Johnson Street shelter services in place. So Mayor talks about the city's land assets and how they hope to use some of these things to help prompt and expand affordable housing.
The city of Missoula has 45 acres in its ownership that it is currently looking to activate. Some of that is on the market, some of it's not on the market. Some of it is that we are looking to activate it, like Southgate Crossing, by really helping catalyze things like the Midtown Master Plan. And under construction right now is the Scott Street Rivara project. So I'm not sure if you've driven by there lately, but they have really done well to get the vertical construction up, and I'm pleased to see the progress of that project, where there'll be 89 homes for purchase for folks that are earning moderate wages in our community.
Yep, so there's a lot of places just like that. The Rivara project is not open yet, but we also have the advantage of the Villaggio, the Trinity Navigation Center, Solstice, Equinox buildings, many other things under the purview of the Missoula Housing Authority. So Missoula Housing Authority is a great resource for a lot of people who are looking for affordable housing, who are making ends meet, not quite thriving, but just enough to survive, would benefit from some of those services as well. So Missoula Housing Authority is a nice umbrella for many of the HUD programs and housing, urban development, and all that kind of such happening as well. So a lot of background on these projects overall, and the attempts to bring projects like Rivera Scott Street in combination with all those other places. This meeting was very short and heightened many of the mayor's priorities in the city of Missoula. So Missoula Housing Redevelopment and Community Planning Committee meeting spoke about the Johnson Street shelter, mostly about their housing sprint. So I didn't want to talk to you about the semantics and the reasoning behind the closure of the shelter, but this is some of the stuff that they're putting into effect to move forward on this. And so here's the mayor's thinking on the housing sprint and how this is going to benefit the people of Johnson Street shelter to put them into housing.
We have stood up Housing Sprint as a way to thoughtfully unwind the Johnson Street shelter. And we've done this in consultations with our service providers. We continue to develop this plan as we're working on a daily basis, and Emily Armstrong can share quite a bit more on that. But the overview here is that we're working together to help folks secure permanent housing or connect people by reuniting them with friends and family, or other appropriate type of housing circumstances, potentially, such as those that are seeking treatment or recovery services. Certainly, we anticipate a number of unique solutions along the way.
All right, so that was Mayor Andrea Davis talking a little bit more about what they are trying to do. Essentially, the city is doing something to make the impact lessen throughout this plan versus simply closing it all together. I'd have them explain the reason behind this, but they basically said that they need $2 million that is not available to keep this going. Overall, the city's goals are building affordable housing, which has more or less long-range plans, and time is against the city as they rush to house the current 160 people who use the Johnson shelter on any given night. House for the holidays was a plan that the city did back in the winter months, last couple months. I think it was like December, January. It was a 60-day sprint to help get people housed, and roughly they got 80% of the 16 veterans housed, which is 12 people in 60 days. And so if you kind of look at the numbers of the 160 people, they would essentially have to have 32 people a month with, and if they met their 80% goal, that would roughly be 25 people per month to meet that 80% goal, which they met with the other goal with the veterans. So, sorry, I'm talking in circles, but Emily Armstrong, Homeless Programs Manager, talks a little bit more details about this sprint, and this is what she had to say about that.
Sprint component of this is really building off the foundation of the Missoula Coordinated Entry System and applying learnings from House for the Holidays and from various other community efforts that we've undergone over the years. That said, this housing sprint is adjacent to, connected to the Missoula Coordinated Entry System, but the Coordinated Entry System will continue operating, will continue leading that and running that as it runs right now throughout the course of this. So this is not co-opting the entirety of the Missoula Coordinated Entry System's focus. It's not taking over the priority process that currently exists for that system. It is in addition, and we have to recognize all the service providers in our community who are dedicating capacity to do this in addition alongside our team. It's a really big ask, and we're grateful for those who are showing up.
And so far, they're trying to raise $400,000 to help pay for a lot of this stuff. They're going to be using United Way of Missoula with their $100,000 on top of that to help with their many of these programs like the Centralized Housing Solution, which has been going for people who apply to that program to allow for them to put it down a deposit, use that money for bus tickets to where they need to go to find that housing. But most of this has to be like, you do have to go through the whole paperwork and go through this whole kind of thing just so you can get money to help pay for this kind of stuff. And although the Johnson Street Shelter was one-stop shop for many people who had limited access to the Poverello Center, the city plans to use this system in place to move people forward. Other than the Poverello, will be the main location to send individuals who have been dealing with a housing crisis. You know, library is yet another location for individuals looking to connect with homeless outreach teams. They have a public phone and provide services by the POV, even when individuals have bad standing with the Poverello Center, which also has rules against alcohol and drug use on the premises. So Emily also talks about the follow-up with the people walking a tightrope on home stability, and this is what she had to say.
We know very well that a key part of the Housing First and Housing Focused approach is making sure that there are supports for people once they find a positive solution, to continue that ongoing engagement, continue providing a touch point. For some folks, that's really intensive wraparound services. For many folks, that's, you know, someone checking in on them once a week, just to see how they're doing. And given the limited resources of this sprint, we're trying to figure out how we can build out supports for folks, regardless of not necessarily having a full staffed team to mobilize that kind of ongoing retention stability, but how we can still, kind of provide that off ramp when someone becomes housed, to make sure they still have connections and touch points. Advocacy groups working, or advocacy groups with organizing abilities have a really important role to play in this, I think. We're working to make some connections with those groups, but well-mobilized volunteer support can be a huge support in this process. There are things like securing move-in supplies to make sure folks have a bed, they have sheets, they have kitchen supplies when they move into a unit. Helping with physical move-in, actually literally moving someone into a unit if they are becoming housed. Transportation to housing-related appointments, and again, kind of that light touch, ongoing stability support for folks once they become housed. Those are all areas that well-mobilized volunteer networks could play a really important role, and we're looking to make those partnerships.
Yep, and so far, you know, many of those partnerships also includes trying to help raise the money to help provide this housing sprint to move forward. Many of the organizations used in place is the Sovereign Hope Church. You also have Human Resource Council and United Way of Missoula, which offers relief for services from heating, electricity, to being able to pay off debt to landlords and property management to retain housing. And of course, at this point, most people living in Missoula are budgeting. Not to mention, churches have also been stepping up between Sovereign Hope Church and the Interfaith Collaborative, providing shelter beds under the regulation of the health department per state law that has been more lenient when it comes to allowing churches to host some of these roles as a homeless shelter. So while United Way Missoula has that $100,000 centralized housing dollars, they feel confident that they can help raise the $400,000 to support this housing sprint. The next section of the meeting continued on the anti-camping ordinance, which also included the permitting for vehicles for folks living out of their vehicles. During the meeting, Christian Jordan, City Council, is concerned for those off the grid that don't use the shelter services and definitely have lack of access to many of these things, and Emily responds.
We have survival campers who've not utilized the shelters for a variety of really valid reasons who also want housing. And I don't think it is okay to not use those funds to help those folks get shelter, particularly because we've been using the Missoula Coordinated Entry System and the Fuse list for these unsheltered folks, and some of them rank pretty high in the list. And I'm wondering why we're not using this database to prioritize folks who are not accessing the shelter in the housing sprint.
Thanks, Kristen. Councilor Jordan. Yes, so gathering my thoughts. We are in active conversations about how to ensure that folks who are maybe on permanent outs from the shelter or have outs related to ADLs, activities of daily living, are still being accounted for in this process and are still getting housing-focused attention. So that's an active conversation. We are very aware of that population and want to be sure that there are solutions to support them. The reality of the housing sprint is that it's a short period of time with a limited amount of resources. And so we're working really hard with service providers to have collective conversations about how we best utilize the resources that we have available for this specific project to support the folks specifically impacted by this closure.
Yeah, and so as they move forward, this is yet just another one of those things that they're trying their best. They don't have the resources to kind of keep up with that they've been saying they're trying to keep up with. So not much of an answer from some people who, beyond one reason or another, are more difficult to get into housing. They call those chronically homeless. That's the most political response they could come up with, since frankly, a lot of times maybe the thing is that they don't want to be part of these solutions, particularly these solutions, and have been let down by the system for so long that the help they needed will probably not be provided. Why not speak up, says the normies out there, knowing full well that they tried, but no one was there to listen. Best case scenario, we, the people, should have the tools to send those people to the right resources, but most of us don't even really know some of the resources in place. I'm informed to a certain degree, and even I have a hard time talking to some of these struggling folks. In the end, the city took on a job they cannot do from a shelter format and have moved to disperse the people while trying to stay connected to those who have used those services in the past. So Emily Armstrong talks about the changes and reasonings behind it.
Yes, I think in the last year or two, and coming for longer than that, there's been this shift toward a much more housing-focused approach throughout all pieces of the system, from outreach to case management, tenancy support within shelters. So that's my preface. To your actual question, I'm not going to have the answer to you offhand, but we can look into it. We do have a way to understand shelter use over time within the coordinated entry system. I don't have the percentage offhand, but what we know anecdotally is that over the last few years, and we have seen some of our kind of system-wide data. We were just looking at data for drafting the annual needs and gaps report, and seeing that people are staying in the last year or two in the system a little bit longer. I don't want to speak to all the intricacies of that because we're still analyzing that data, but we know that there are many people who come into emergency shelter to stabilize for the night, and that ends up being their solution for longer than the model of emergency shelter is intended.
And so that was the big part at the very end, if you were listening, about the concept of the emergency shelter becoming a sense of permanent location. In the end, if you designate a site for a certain group of people, those people will be there. But if you eliminate this separate think space, you can integrate these folks into areas for them to get back on their feet from an individual approach rather than creating a clubhouse for their stays. You know, if you build it, they will come. If you leave it, they will stay. This is simply a 5-month eviction notice with services to help you find a new place. Talk about a property management or landlord that would be willing to do that for you if they give you the 30-day notice, which is per state law. So there's it is definitely one of those hard things to really kind of swallow, but for the most part, the city have overextended itself through the pandemic fund money, and now they have to recoil and recoup a lot of their costs in the end. So we're gonna alleviate some of the bad vibes and bring it up for some fun videos for you guys featuring some of the spring break camp kids in a movie called The Leprechaun.
Toy. Let me out of here. Get me out. Get me out.
Yes! I finally did it. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Come on, clap, guys. Stop that. How we got him is just one chocolate coin, and that's it. And I was tracking the leprechaun, and I realized he was in Montana. I saw that he was in Butte, but was heading to Missoula. He's gone! He's gone! Wait, what? How did he escape? I don't know!
I was expecting aliens.
Sorry.
I spent $50 on leprechauns. More like it was leprechaun. Liar!
What? I didn't mean to. You lost it, so go clean up.
Come on! I leprechaun kill you! This is much better than me Lucky Charms. Gotcha! Stop moving. You're making this too tough for yourself. Just die already. Be my lucky day. Many more to come. Chocolate. Aha, very funny. Yeah, I need that. Kiss me, I'm nervous. Sorry, it's okay. Perfect timing. I got you now! Get in here! Get in the truck with me! Hey, what's this? What the heck is going on? Please, you'll dance forever, boy. No! I've done. I want to repent for my sins. Ooh, a victim! I recognize these coins. Who would this beard be itchy? Well, well, well. What's up? You could have stopped all of this. My slaughter. I could have lived peacefully in the wilds. All of this could have been mine, but you had to stop me. I did not want to fight. I wanted to live peacefully. That was your friend. Who shook me? Oh, sweet. And I won't just stop at your friends. I won't stop at your family. I won't stop at anything. Everybody's going to die. The power! I thought you would win, but take this. What was that? Was that the Blarney Stone? I'm allergic! Oh no! Oh no! Please! Stop going! Please don't leave me! Oh.
All right, we are back. Let's talk. Oh, weird. Okay, so as we jump right in, we're going to talk about some movies that are coming out this week, and it's time for a pre-critic, where I prejudge a movie based on absolutely nothing but my biases towards movies in general. Jumping right in, kicking things off is a horror comedy action thing called Death of a Unicorn. You may have liked Knives Out, but with the creature feature of the week. The darts hit unicorn, and we have all the premise for the following rich family that discover roadkill for their lowly but relatable father-daughter duo bring to the table reveals a medical benefits from the unicorn horn. However, mommy's watching and takes out each of the characters without plot armor. I assume the dad is near death, results in the daughter to being like, we're sorry and we'll never kill unicorn babies again, essentially. And then we jump right over to Working Man, or as I like to call it, the Jason Statham, random odd job guy, secret badass. Basically, he's playing his typecast for every single movie. This movie is called A Working Man. Come join us for yet another blue-collar action movie that stars British tough guy Jason Statham as he works as a contractor but has his shady past of being a badass again. It's the beekeeper all over again in this journey to become the best working man to take down a corporate America yet again. Enjoy your meet, you action movie junkies who follow someone who is just one bad day away from taking down the system. Moving on. Yes, there is indeed the woman in the yard, and she is hungry for children, but single mother and her no-nonsense attitude will win the day against the lady who just so happens to wait in yards until someone with kids move in. I don't know. I don't get it. The housing market is terrible, but this woman in the yard, I think she may be up to something, and it doesn't look good. But hey, the housing price, it's pretty good, honestly. Then we got the Penguin Lessons. Simply put, this movie would essentially have some kind of zoo or animal rights organization take over for the animal, but will suspend disbelief as a guy who rescued a penguin to impress a girl, only to be stuck caring for the penguin and learn to love the penguin more than he could ever love that random woman who only exists to move the plot forward. However, this is a low-key political comedy with some drama and realism thrown in for good measure. Then we got The Friend. Essentially, it's Turner and Hooch, but a woman in the big city who basically inherits a dead relative's big Great Dane dog. So enjoy a movie based on a book with plenty of heartfelt moments related to the dog and its dead original owner, and the obligation we put on ourselves to keep our word to the dead. Then we got Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, Not Good Road Trip. I believe this was a sequel to The Not Very Good Day with Steve Carell, but this movie more or less that frankly doesn't have Steve Carell and didn't go well enough to hire a whole new cast and have a whole new adventure on the road in a slapstick family comedy where the journey is all sorts of crazy. Also, it's been a while since there was a road trip movie in general. Audrey's Children. Essentially, this movie is about the beginnings of the Ronald McDonald House, but there's always has to be some kind of political controversy because it's way back in the day in the 1960s. She's a woman who wants to start a children's hospital, and everyone's just like, you're a woman, instead of the fact that, hey, why are you against the concept of starting a children's hospital? So when you think about it like that, helping children supersedes the fact that she was a woman at the time and history, that kind of stuff. So it is kind of kooky that they do this kind of stuff, but hey, this is the way some of those old movies are, where it's just like an old history movie. You can't do that. It's like, watch me, and then they do it, and everyone's happier for it. So there's always adversity. They always have to throw that into based on real life stories and stuff like that. So up next, we have a new dubbin stuff from the 1958 film I Married a Monster from Outer Space.
Now that's what I call filing. Donut song. Oh, donut song. Hey, you want some donuts? I got them from the file cabinet. They're perfectly fine. All right, here's some donuts. Plenty of gluten.
Thank you, but I'd rather pass.
Passing on donuts. It's not a clear sign of sanity, I tell you what. Would you feel any better if I stuck my finger in each one? Sometimes I like to put cream cheese in instead of jelly. My mother called me a monster.
Please, officer, I don't have much time. My husband's going to get home soon.
No, you don't say. That seems very interesting. Well, why are you wandering around the street with your unmentionables, like your nightgown and such? Well, my guess is that you had some fight over something trivial. Is that right?
Well, it's just been a little disagreement that just bloomed and snowballed out of control.
Well, it's not like deciding on where to eat, is it? My wife said she didn't care where she wanted to go, but I was just like, how about we go tacos? And she's just like, I don't feel like tacos. And then I said, why don't we just go for Thai food? And she's like, I don't feel like Thai food. And then I just dropped her off, and I never looked back. And my life has been a lot simpler, but I also regret the fact that I left her at a restaurant, and, you know, she knew where to go.
Well, my husband collects Pokemon cards, so it's like that.
Pokemon ain't real. It's just a bunch of pocket monsters. Besides, what's the big deal about having a guy and his hobbies? You know, I have my hobbies too. I like to shoot at squirrels. I like to shoot at gophers. Heck, if there's something that moves that's not human, bang, I shoot it right then and there. Pokemon cards, they're a glimpse into a man's soul. What kind of Pokemon is your husband into anyways? The starter packs like Blastoise, Charizard, and Venusaur, all those kind of big ones? Well, that can't be it.
It's not like that.
Well, come on out with it. Tell me, what's the big deal? You know, every guy has his hobby. Some guys like cars, some guys like shooting people. I mean, shooting animals and such. But what's this whole thing about Pokemon cards? Come on with me. You know, it's pretty mainstream at this point. Having a Pokemon, thing isn't a big deal anymore. So don't judge your husband. Just give him a second chance.
But my husband, he started a Pokemon band with all sorts of Pokemon.
Well, is it original music, or is he just taking popular music and Weird Al-ing them with lyrics from Pokemon and whatnot? That's what I thought. Get going. It's no big deal. Whatever. Men and their hobbies. Storms are coming. I can feel the Pokemon in my soul.
Yeah, definitely that movie was an inspiration to the Dan Aykroyd movie, My Stepmom's an Alien, for sure. So we're going to jump right into some of the events that are happening in and around the city of Missoula. Kicking things off, of course, is that it's an intellectual property event at the School of Law at the University of Montana. So if you have any IP, intellectual property that you want to copyright, trademark, and all that kind of stuff, the 2025 IP Day in Montana will feature a very special guest, Professor Jorge Contreras, who will be offering insights to his book, The Genome Defense, Inside the Epic Legal Battle to Determine Who Owns Your DNA, an ongoing partnership between Blewett School of Law and the IPL section of Montana Bar. Each year, the organizations build educational programming featuring intellectual property. And so this also has to do with the fact that 23andMe just went bankrupt and out of business, and all that DNA data is ripe for the taking for anybody who wants to buy them out, which is what Chapter 11 bankruptcy is basically a yard sale of your company. Effective communication for the workplace starting at 9 a.m. at the Lifelong Learning Center. If you want to open your tool belt in terms of creating a better work environment for yourself and others, they do this at the Lifelong Learning Center and adjacent to many other classes that they do, including Introduction to Pickleball. Seasons of Change Counseling Group, University of Montana Education Building, Phyllis J. Washington. University of Montana Counseling graduate students are offering free counseling support group for outdoor professionals navigating dynamic times. The group is called Seasons of Change. They will meet Friday from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m., March 29th through the 9th of May at the Phyllis J. Washington College of Education at the University of Montana. This group is a confidential space to process and grow. And this is usually for the fact that Montana has just laid off over 300 forest workers through the Doge. Stroller Strides, Mommy and Me Worker class every day, Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. at Bonner Park. Family Fun Time at Mismo Gymnastics starting at 10 a.m. Empower Place open play hours at the Missoula Food Bank starting at 10 a.m. This goes until about 1 p.m. During their open hours. It is a great resource. It's part library, science exhibit, museum. Not to mention, it also is a food bank for people to pick up nutritious food for their families and those who are a benefit through SNAPs and anything, and also anybody who just wants to go there to get nutritious food. Tiny Tales at Missoula Public Library every Friday at 10:30 a.m. Pre-Screw Playgroup at Roots Acro Sports Center at 10:45 a.m. There's a butterfly release at the Insectarium and Butterfly House in Missoula starting at 11 a.m. Today at noon, watercoloring yarns here at the Missoula Public Library on the 4th floor. You can't miss it. It happens every Friday at noon. All Abilities Art Club at BASE, which is for folks who are living with disabilities. It is an organization that happens every Friday at 1 p.m. Poetry and Play at the Lifelong Learning Center as well. They're doing poetry and play there to help people express themselves through poetry and play. Hands-on Science Extravaganza. This is through the Spectrum Discovery Center at the 2nd floor of the Missoula Public Library, starting at 2 p.m. They usually have their events at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, but they're usually open from 10 a.m. to about 6 p.m. Tuesdays through Saturdays. Lego Club at the Missoula Public Library at 2:30 p.m. every Friday. Estate Planning and Financial Preparation Workshop here at the Public Library starting at 3 p.m. Youth Adult Writers Group at 3:30 p.m. here as well. The Tortoise versus the Hare. Missoula Children's Theater is hosting a Tortoise versus the Hare play starting at 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. And this is where kids get together and put on a show, and they're going to be showing it tonight at 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. only. Dolce Sloan at the Wilma. They're doing some comedy there at 7 p.m. tonight at 7 p.m. Youth Lagoon, Rarely Do I Dream Tour is going to be performing. Oops. I did not put it down anywhere. Darn, my bad. All right, we'll have to skip that. Oh, is that the Zach? Oh, yeah, it's at the Zach. Okay, Zootown Arts Community Center is hosting that at 7 p.m. Night Bloom and Jasmine is going to be at the Old Post starting at 7 p.m. playing some jazz music. Traffic Yost is going to be at Imagination Brewing Company playing some music there as well. The Disappearing Rings of Saturn. Payne Native American Center, their favorite ring planet Saturn, has a lengthy 29-year orbital period around the sun. In a given orbit, it will experience a pair of equinoxes and a pair of solstices. Saturn seasonal cycles have a dramatic impact on the appearance of the rings as seen from Earth. You can join them for an exploration of Saturn's ever-changing aesthetics, along with some projections and discussions of long-term future of the rings themselves. The rings won't last forever, but if you're not, they're not going away in our lifetimes. And there's also a show at 7 p.m. Bell Folk Dance at the Elks Lodge on the second floor, doing some dance lessons at 7 p.m. Curtis Roy is going to be playing some folk music at Craigie's Public House. Goners UK JADE Earth School at Monk's Bar, playing some rock music at 8 p.m. tonight. The Spills is going to be playing at the Union Club. And then we're going to jump right into your Saturday as we're talking about booming to Lee Metcalf NWR with birder and author Sneed Collard. The Natural History Center is hosting an early spring birding trip to one of the Western Montana's premier birding locations with veteran birder Sneed Collard, author of the new book Birding for Boomers, and everyone else brave enough to embrace the world's most rewarding and frustrating activity, bird watching. Instructor Sneed Collard III is an author of more than 100 books for children and adults, including Birding for Boomers, and so they'll be featured there. It's going to be an all-day stint on Saturday from about 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and there is cost for admission. So the Natural Medicine Inclusion Summit, so NAMUS, is going to be at the University of Montana. Is designated for practitioners, scientists, professors, students, and anyone interested in natural health. The event blends diverse perspectives to explore the future of natural medicine, featuring keynote speakers, interactive workshops, and chemistry in a chemistry show. Connect, learn, and be inspired where science meets nature. Namaste.org for more details and registration. Makerspace walk-in hours at the Missoula Public Library every Saturday at 10 a.m. Line dancing at the Missoula Senior Center at 10 a.m. on Saturday. Country Hoedown at Showdown Academy. Player pickup, join adult slow pitch softball. So there's so many things happening at 10 a.m. on Saturday that you just can't miss all this stuff. McCormick Park is doing slow pitch softball for any player pickup day. So join an adult slow pitch league. Story time at 10:30 a.m. every Saturday at the Missoula Public Library. Picture book plays presented by Sentinel High School. Missoula Public Library theater students from Sentinel High School presents picture book plays. Come see talented thespians perform childhood favorites into short plays. Click, Clank, Moo, Cows That Type by Doreen Cronin. Skippy John Jones by Judy Schumacher. Grumpy Monkey by Suzanne Lang, and The Rabbit Listened to by Corey Dorfield will perform live at the library. Light refreshments will be served to enjoy after performances. So at the Missoula Art Museum, they have their regular museum tour starting at 11 a.m. There's a 5K beer run through Highlander Brewing Company starting at noon on Saturday. Queer Tools in the Carpentry Workshop. This class is designed through the Home Resource Workshop to welcome and inclusive the LGBTQIA2 community with a desire to learn beginner workshop skills. Join instructor Natalia Bosey, who will guide you through the safety and proper operation of power tools and basic carpentry. Open Teen Studio at the Missoula Art Museum starting at 12:30 at the Missoula Art Museum. This is geared towards teens to encourage them to do art, and supplies will be provided. MCAT Saturday drop-ins every Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. Animals Kitten Shower. They're expecting hundreds of kittens this season, and they figured the best way to have fun and prepare for the party is Saturday, March 29th from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. They want folks to join them to play their kittens at their Animals No-Kill Adoption Center and Pet Food Bank. They'll be crafting up some supplies, taking on donations from a kitten shower registry, and even enjoy some sweet snacks in celebration of the new Tiny Tigers. So if you want to see a bunch of kittens, tomorrow is the day starting at 1 p.m. Montana Repertory Theater, first reads at the Missoula Public Library starting at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Missoula Public Library is proud to host the Montana Repertory Theater for the first reads, a staged reading series featuring local actors reading 3 contemporary plays. The Rep is considering for full productions, stage readings, test stories, and community before sets. Costumes and other theatrical elements are added, allowing audiences and actors to envision the future production. So they get to choose what they're going to choose, and they're going to need your help to help narrow it down here at the Public Library starting at 2 p.m. on Saturday. Makerspace is also doing a thing called Arduino for everyone. The classes are for anyone interested in Arduino hardware and software, which is commonly used in robotics and control devices. and this is at 3 p.m. at the Missoula Public Library. An evening with Scott Niedermeyer at the Glacier Ice Rink, and he is a hockeyman, Hockey Hall of Famer, and he's going to be there, and it's going to cost quite a bit of money for this. The event starts at 6 p.m. at the Home Arts Building in the Missoula County Fairgrounds, and is $50 per person. So square dancing with the Roots Ensemble, Elks Lodge, 6:30 p.m. at Elks Lodge, playing some folk music. Zest, a festival to benefit the Zootown Arts Community Center, starting at 7 p.m. on Saturday. John Flores with Lauren Stillman will be playing at Imagination Brewing Company on Saturday at 7 p.m. Karaoke at the West Side Lanes and Fun Center every Saturday at 9 p.m. Jackson Holt is going to be playing at the Union Club on Saturday at 9 p.m. and DJ Chris Moon is going to be wrapping up your Saturday at the Badlander at 10 p.m. Also on Sunday, as we wrap this up as quickly as we can, free sessions. Tricia Upstead and Dusty Shriver is going to be at Free Cycles. This is an open jam session featuring a 20 to 30 minute piece. Following the curator, participants are invited to jam together in a trio and quartets, a sound built from an open sign-up list. And then we got comedy at Sunday at the VFW at 8 p.m. And then we got more karaoke at the Sunrise Saloon, rocking karaoke at 8:30 p.m. So those are things that are happening in and around. I also wanted to mention that before I wrap up my show, is that the governor just signed in a transgender ban in their bathroom bill and transgender athlete ban. So House Bill 121, one of the first measures introduced during the sessions, would require public restrooms and changing areas exclusively for males or females and require people to use one of the designated for their sex based on external genitalia present at birth. The bill, which landed the court the same day, would also require individuals to be housed at a prison aligning with their designated sex at birth. So the other House Bill 300 restricts the ability of transgender women from participating in female sports. Today they are maintaining the equal opportunities. Gianforte, in a statement, said, because we think it's pretty simple, a man shouldn't be in a woman's restroom, shouldn't be in a woman's shower room, and shouldn't be housed in a women's prison. Both bills were sponsored by Representative Carrie Seakin Crow of Billings. Speaker of the House also mentioned that the victories for common sense and the show in Montana as we believe in biological reality. So, you know, that's the thing about common sense, is that not everyone is as common as you may think. So as we move on, and since we're talking about the government and whatnot, a Montana governor and Florida governor Ron DeSantis has actually joined forces to put pressure on the federal government to balance the budget as well, if not better than the states. The Daily Montana reported Tuesday that Greg Gianforte and Ron DeSantis formed a partnership to apply pressure to Congress. Appearing before lawmakers, Gianforte and DeSantis urged Montana legislature to pass a resolution calling for a convention of the states, a never-before-used method of amending the U.S. Constitution, and join the national call for a balanced budget. Every state in the county except one, Vermont, is required to balance the budget, and while every business, school district, city, or family must balance their budget, sadly, the U.S. government doesn't have to do the same, according to Gianforte. This does not go over well with both sides of the aisles, booed the men in what Gianforte brought the two parties together for once. Gianforte pointed out the work done for Montana to become debt-free under his administrations, but mind you, both governors lauded their states for holding the line on spending and modeling what could have been done on a federal level. But of course, mind you, Steve Bullock also left office in a better position with plenty of rainy day funds for emergencies like our fire seasons. As we get further into the budget in general, Montana has their work cut out for them as property taxes are due to raise, and many bills proposed aim to slow down and even turn back the clock on assessed values of our homes for property taxes. So from HB 151 to 155, which aims to turn back the clock on simple registration units from 59% to 52%, a number in which we were before the major jump in the 2023 assessment period, which saw many of the properties go up by 20%. The goal is to redistribute other classifications of properties from commercial to industrial to pick up the slack while offering a respite for property management complexes to offset renters' expenditures to the tax base. Of course, as we narrow our scope, I have to say back to Missoula, that Who Hot Arson was just the story that really kind of bummed me out personally. You know, I'll switch to my editorial hat as we witness a woman on a security camera walking near the Who Hot Wednesday morning where investigators determined that the fire originated from a shed in the back of the Who Hot complex. Detectives reviewed surveillance footage, which captured footage of the suspect. An off-duty officer later observed the woman matching the suspect's description and reported it to her detectives. And after interviewing the 34-year-old, Amy Burke was booked and arrested in an investigation that involved coordination between Missoula Police arson-trained detectives and Missoula Fire Department officials. You know, I have a lot of good memories from the Good Eats before it closed back in October 23. It was a darn shame, and this felt like an insult to injury overall. So as we wrap up our show, I also, it's a lot of things happening this week as well with our President J.D. Vance joined his wife Usha to Greenland, where Trump administration have taken a stance on acquiring the land while natives opposing joining the U.S. As a state, and have joined Denmark in just to say no to the U.S. So Denmark has some semi-control over it, even though Greenland consists of its own government and autonomy. And, you know, the whole point of this, that Greenland is a self-governing country altogether. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said on Tuesday that the visit was originally set for 3 days, created unacceptable pressure. On Thursday, she was cited by Danish public broadcaster DR saying, we really want to work with Americans on defense and security in the kingdom, but Greenland belongs to the Greenlanders. So those are your stories that are happening in and around the world today. And for Wake Up Missoula, I'm Scott Ramp. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend.